Coming up on episode 316 of Wheel Bearings, we've got the Toyota Crown, the Honda Beat, the Honda Beast, the 2014 GMC or 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 AT4X AEV Edition. Highlights from the Detroit Auto Show, including the new F-150, Cadillac CT5, GMC Acadia, the Honda Motocompacto fold-up mini scooter, Mustang Mach-E Rally that's going to be running in the Rebelle Rally in a couple of weeks, and Stefan Hartung, Chairman and CEO of Bosch, and Brian Latouf, the Global Chief Safety Officer for Hyundai Motor Group. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 316 of Wheel Bearings. I am Sam Abu-Al-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
I am Nicole Wakeland from the Road Reflective Podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from SAE International.
And in a rare occurrence this week, all three of us were in the same place at the same time, at least in the same building at the same time, if not necessarily in the same location in that building.
We never actually all managed to see each other at the same time.
Yeah, I ended up...
us.
That was I just left.
Well, you did the smart
Robbie.
thing.
Yeah.
I could have stuck. I was sticking around, and like, you know what? I got work to do.
Well, I left about 1:30 or 2 o'clock.
She didn't leave much after.
I don't think anybody was there for very long because it was done. So we're talking about the Detroit Auto
If you're
Show.
shooting video, it was like a really great Detroit Auto Show.
Right.
Because like everyone's going to be gone. You could shoot all your video on the first day, which at a regular auto show, the first day, it's really tough because you got people walking in front of you. It's a nightmare. But the Detroit show for the 3 cars, perfect.
4. There was 4.
4 cars.
Come on, let's give them credit. Give them credit for the F-150.
Yeah. That technically wasn't at the show.
Well, it was on the show floor. They just didn't technically announce it at the show.
Right.
Although it was on the show schedule. But we'll talk about that later.
Oh, my gosh.
So what did you drive, Nicole?
I drove the 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 AT4X AEV. That literally is the name of this. I was like, I missed a word. 2024 GMC Sierra 1500 AT4X AEV Edition. So there we go. There's the whole thing.
Got to have the edition in there.
Got to have the edition. So this is the off-roadiest of the off-roady truck, which is already off-roadier than it was last year. That's my review. So it was the AT4, then there was the AT4X. Now the AT4X AEV adds even more. So each additional series of letters just continues to add off-road capability to this vehicle.
And dollars and dollars and dollars and dollars to the bottom line.
The numbers go higher, the letters go, everything, there's more letters, there's more numbers. Yeah, everything goes up. So the price on this, since we're chatting about it, is $90,935. You guys want to take a guess at destination?
$1,800.
Sam?
I'm going to say $2,500.
Robbie wins $1,895.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, you were like right on there. So $1,895.
I thought Sam was going to say $1 because that's what I would have said if I heard.
I figured they would charge extra because they probably ship it to AEV to make the AEV edition, or do they do that in the factory?
I'm wondering if it's factory. I'm not sure whether it's factory. It must be factory because otherwise it would have had to have been more for that. Because $1,895 feels pretty ridiculously normal for a truck. So I feel like
especially for something with AEV stuff on it, because that's American Expedition vehicles and they do off-road stuff. And earlier this year when they did the 20th anniversary Wrangler Rubicon, they had AEV stuff on there. And I think the 392, the Wrangler Rubicon 392 was something like $110,000.
Oof. Yeah, it adds a lot, but it adds a lot.
That's
so
a
the
lot.
AEV edition, the price on that, what you're paying for that, it's just under $7,000. It's $6,895, and that adds quite a bit. You get some kind of fun stuff like you have AEV stamped rear bumpers, and you get high gloss black wheels with AEV center caps, and you get like an AEV. Oh, okay, I read.
Well, those high gloss black wheels do wonders off road.
They do, right? That's exactly what you want when there's rocks and gravel and sticks and stuff poking your wheels. And it's perfect combination, like peanut butter and chocolate.
Like bears out there poking your wheels with sticks.
Scraping against boulders.
So I just read this. The word is boron, AEV hot stamp boron. I totally read it as bourbon. I'm like, AEV hot stamp bourbon steel. What the heck is that? So there's AEV hot stamp boron.
It tastes better for the bears when they bite into it.
Plates. Yeah. So there's the rocker rails there.
Rock rails.
Rock rails. Hate them. Hate them on this vehicle. And I like this overall, but I know they're not supposed to be a step. Like a step is a flat surface. It's designed to be flat that you can put your foot on and you can step up. Rock rails are designed to keep you from smashing the edge of your car against rocks. Like the rocks slide along the rock rails. So they're not really a step, but I feel like the way these are positioned are the most awkward ever because they're not round. They're sort of like angled, so they kind of come in, but they come up far enough that your foot kind of wants to catch them. Like you almost want to think like, I should be able to step on that. Nope. Actually, I can't step on that. And if you try to step on that, it won't let you step on it. But then you're just taking this awkwardly large step as if your side sill has suddenly just grown twice its normal size. So I find them awkwardly placed in this vehicle. That was my big beef. Stupid. And like my daughter tried to get in and she was like, this is stupid, Mom. I can't even get in this truck with a skirt because these little, I don't know, do I step on this rail? Do I not step on this rail? So I did not like that. That was my dislike. What I did like was that this is an off-road truck. Like this is truly someone who's going to be doing some hardcore off-roading. It's not messing around. A lot of the times when you have that truck, that also means that driving it on the highway, it's a miserable ride because they get very bouncy. When they're trying to when you get those great big giant off-road tires and you take them onto the highway and you go 65 miles an hour, it's just ridiculous. You go through a little bump or something and you have this like bounce and sway that can make you often feel like you're losing a little bit of control of the vehicle that you're driving. And it's a little disconcerting. This is incredibly smooth. Like I drove it on the highway and it didn't have any issues. Even changing lanes at speed sort of quickly, it still stays really composed, which I appreciate because no matter how much you love going off-road in your vehicle, at some point you're going home, which probably for most humans requires driving on some kind of regular old road, whether it's dirt or whether it's paved. There is a path of some sort to most of our homes that is not an off-road rugged trail. So
unless you live out in the bush,
Unless you live in the bush.
But you're going to wear a road.
You're going to just make your own road, right?
Yeah.
You're making your own road. But so I appreciate that this was an off-road capable truck that actually did a very good balance of having all of the capability you could possibly want, but also being something that you could live with day to day. The usual complaint there too is that it's still really big, and because it's so high, you have to rely on that 360 camera big time because you cannot get an idea of where the front corners on the front of the car or how far you just cannot get any sense of anything distance wise. So I was so relying. If it did not have the overhead camera, like those are essential. I feel like everything should have the 360 bird's eye view, whatever they want to call it. Because as you're coming out of a tight spot, you can see if you're about to clip some stupid, cute little decorative curb at the local restaurant or whatever.
Or a pedestrian.
Well, yeah, people too, whatever. They can get out of the way. But the curb is not going to move unless you move it by accident. So like on a vehicle like this, those safety features that are in those little convenience, I guess it's safety, but it's also convenient because you can see better. But on a sedan, it's great. They help you. But on a big car, gosh, they are a godsend to be able to have those little cameras so that you can actually see everything around your vehicle. I wedged myself into a parking space I had no right fitting into because the parking lot at this particular place was full. But I never would have tried it without the cameras because there was so much. There was like the wire coming down from a telephone pole, and like secure them in the ground. It has a little cover over it. Little wire there. There's a little post here. There was a rock there. I'm like, okay, let's see how these cameras work. I wedged myself right in there. Took like the last parking space in the lot. Woohoo! So I liked it. I think it's a good truck. I mean, it's expensive. I'm feeling like most people that buy this don't use all that capability, but wow, $91,000 if you're not a hardcore off-roader just for a truck that looks super cool. I mean, if it makes you feel good, great. But it's a lot of money for a truck if you're not truly doing that every single weekend of your life.
It's a midlife crisis. Empty the 401k truck.
It would. Isn't everyone emptying their 401k to buy in-sync tickets? Isn't that what's happening now? I thought not for trucks.
Buy what tickets?
In-sync.
Are those going for as much as Taylor Swift tickets?
I think they probably will. They're supposedly going to go on tour, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!" All the middle-aged moms are like, "I gotta go see me some In-Sync. I gotta raid my husband's 401k."
This is why I don't go to concerts anymore. I I just
very
cannot
expensive.
fathom the idea of paying thousands of dollars
Oh, I don't.
to watch somebody on a screen because you're so far away that you
so
can't
far
even
away.
actually see the band on stage.
That's why you got to be like me and only like bands no one else likes.
There you go.
$450 to go see Pink, but at some point she comes out over these like this trapeze thing. And it's like
$450.
But she completely like sails over the entire stadium in this harness thing. So she actually is pretty darn close, like dangling in the air in front of me, like Tinkerbell.
I can see the bottom of her feet.
Which might be the most
Which for
I've ever
some
paid for a
people is worth
concert.
the cost of the admission.
Whatever
Whatever
you
makes you happy.
Wanted to go, and I made my friend happy. So a friend really wanted to go. So that's not the norm. I blow that kind of money on concert tickets. Let's just be clear.
Yeah.
I haven't done that in I don't even know when.
Yeah, this show does not generate that kind of revenue.
Yeah, no, I don't know.
we don't generate Pink revenue.
No, we don't generate Pink levels of revenue.
But I mean, if everybody wanted to sign up for our Patreon, then
Then
If everyone
maybe we
did.
could.
Yeah.
That's true.
We
I
could
could have
all
got
buy
better
this.
tickets to Devo. I paid $80 for pretty good tickets, but I could have paid more for better tickets.
Yeah,
and I'm in a Devo cover band.
I mean, I would pay
I've seen Devo,
$80
like
for Devo way before I'd pay hundreds or thousands for a lot of these other performers that are out there.
Devo puts on a good show, even though they're this is their 50th anniversary. So
It is not really.
yeah. When
That's
a problem comes
mind-boggling.
along, you must take some Advil and have a nice little nap.
Okay.
So did the Sierra have the multi-pro tailgate?
It does have the multi. I didn't even play with the tailgate. I mean, I'm assuming it has the multi-pro tailgate, which I played with on other. I'm literally looking. GMC multi-pro. Oh, it even has the audio system.
Oh,
I saw it had the tailgate because I could see the seams, but it
So you could
also
so that's
party in the
speakers
back.
in the tailgate.
yeah. So it has the speakers in the tailgate, which are awesome. Have you ever played with that? You ever played with the speakers on this?
No, I haven't. The only vehicle I've had so far with the multi-pro tailgate was the Hummer, and it did not have the speakers.
The speakers are actually pretty decent. I was at a GMC thing, and they were, of course, playing music through the speakers to show it off, and it actually did a pretty good job.
Where were they playing Pink?
No,
No,
losers.
should have played
But they were playing Devo. Would you? So
That's
have
not
you
for the
seen-
youngs, though. The youngs don't want to hear Devo.
Can we go on a tailgate tangent, or do I have to
Certainly.
wait till we talk about the F-150?
No.
So
We don't have to talk about the F-150.
there was lots of F-150 news. It's like later in our show notes, but they have a new tailgate.
Sort of lots of F-150 news.
A little bit of F-150 news. So the tailgate, instead of just coming down, now it actually has a portion in the middle that swings open, like from the driver's side to the right, and it's like maybe 8 inches in on either side. So it's not the full tailgate. It's like
It's like about the middle two-thirds of the tailgates.
Yeah, so it's just these little tiny piece on either side that's stationary. That's their new tailgate. And it has like 3 little stops. It'll stop like partly 1, partly 2, or fully open, so you don't whack into your trailer hitch. What do you? Whose tailgate's the best? We got the multi-pro and GMC.
Oh.
You got this one on Ford. The new one on Ford. You have the Ram that kind of splits on the side. You have Hondas, which is a full swing. Am I missing anybody? Am I missing one?
You said Ram, right? That's
I
split-
said Ram.
Yeah.
Yeah, with
Said
their
Ram.
like
That's just a 1/3, 2/3 split.
Yeah,
Does
1/3,
Rivian do?
2/3.
Does Rivian do anything, or do they
No.
have the special hole?
No,
The
I don't
special
think
hole
Rivian-
to.
I don't think they did anything. Which one do
Yeah.
you think is the best? Which one? You have to pick a truck purely based on the tailgate.
The GM tailgate, does more different things,
Yeah.
but I'm not necessarily sure that it's more useful.
See, here's the thing. We got to
It
get
depends
all of
what you
these
wanna do.
trucks in. We got to get all the trucks in, shoot a little video.
Yeah.
We have to all
the-
meet somewhere, so that's going to be a problem.
Right there, we're in trouble.
We're already in trouble. Get all the things in, and then shoot a little video.
So
We
And
can
then
also
I think it
Truck
depends.
rodeo.
I think it depends on what you want to do with your truck.
Yeah.
If you are pulling a trailer, the Ford setup is actually probably the best one. Because of the way it's configured, because you can open it up part way and get access to the bed, without unhooking the trailer.
Could you do that in the Ram though? Does the little quarter
No,
open by itself without?
no, because you have to open the big side first.
to get the little side. Okay,
I
then you're right.
think.
Yes.
And maybe it's the other way around.
I'm trying to remember which side opens because there's a little side and a big side on the Ram.
Yeah.
Are we talking about fifth wheels?
No, just a standard hitch.
Like when there's a hitch, if you swing too hard,
like a class 4 tailgate.
Yeah, I guess you got to like some of them are they're pretty tight.
I'm
Okay.
Googling the Ram.
Yeah, and
In my brain, I'm thinking of all the trailers I've ever pulled. I'm like, no, yep, there it is.
yeah, the rant or the GM one, if you've got a trailer hooked up, it's not really that useful because you can't drop that part down when you've got a hitch hooked up there, things like that. But on the other hand, depending on what you want to use it for, if you want to use it essentially like as a bed extender, then the GM configuration is better because you can open up the tailgate, flip that back part up, so you've got to stop. So if you're carrying sheets of plywood or lumber or something in the back,
Home Depot runs.
Yeah, so you've got that stop on the back, and so you've got some different configurations there. And then on the Silverado and Sierra EV, combine that with the midgate. If you've got the midgate, now you can have 11 feet of length there from behind the front seats all the way back to that stop on the tailgate. So I think it depends. I don't think there's a clear winner. It depends on how you plan to use your truck to figure out which is the best solution for you.
I think I kind of like the GMC one because I feel like there's more things than you will need it to do, but you're probably going to find the most versatility in that one. I kind of like the GMC. I like the way the step works, like to step up on that one. I find like that one of the easier ones to, like the step they used to have on the
engage.
It's this teeny little weedy little step that always feels like
it feels like it was going to break off.
Right? You always like
what the one that comes out of the top edge of the tailgate.
Yeah.
Oh no, those things are actually pretty robust.
I know.
Yeah, but it feels like it's going to break off.
Like I know they've done this.
Like I know they've tested it on people bigger than me, but I'm also like, is this going to snap?
You don't have a lot of confidence in it. I know it's not going to break. Not saying it will.
We know it's engineered correctly.
Correct.
I mean, I've pulled those things out and stood on it, and I mean they're solid. They don't. They do. I mean, they don't look. The parts that they don't look that thick, but they're made of pretty strong steel.
Yeah.
And,
they are.
Hold,
I stand on that, and it's not going anywhere.
I know they're going to hold, but every time I'm like, oh, this doesn't look like it should. It looks like it's something I should be saying to my kids, don't climb up there. That's not
like they should have a picture of like Wolverine on it. So like, oh, it's that kind of metal, and they're like, oh, it's not going to break.
It's
it's
made
fine.
of adamantium. Is that what Wolverine
that
is?
sounds. Look at that.
I think it's adamantium. Yeah,
I think so.
There's a Disney fan for you.
I think now I'm looking it up. I think it's I got a picture of Wolverine when I googled that adamantium. Woohoo!
All right. So the AT4X AEV Edition is your favorite?
I like that multi-pro tailgate.
Did you go bombing across your neighbor's front yards with that? Just to see how it does off road?
But I did go through. I was at a farm stand and everyone was being stupid getting out of it. And it was like one of those big there's a huge parking lot that's grass and dirt, and all the little cars trying to stay in the dirt part. I'm like, you realize we drive in all of this. Like when it's crowded, we drive right over into the grass. Everyone does. And I just was like, forget this. And I went way up into the tall grass. And the funny thing was, like, as I did this, knowing this is parking area, like half a dozen other trucks in line are like, yeah, that way. We all head out.
You're a trendsetter.
I was trendsetter. Yeah, that's me,
Of course, there is still one feature that Ram has done that nobody else has copied yet, which is the Ram box. And the Ram box is very cool.
Why does nobody else do that?
Wait, which one's the Ram box?
That's the boxes on the side of the bed that you can access from the exterior.
So you can like tuck stuff in, and you can use them as like little coolers.
I mean, it's big enough that Mike Levine can fit in one of those.
Have you tested this? Did you ship Mike Levine in a Ram box?
Yeah, there is a video that is sadly no longer on YouTube. I'm pretty sure Mike Levine had them remove it. But back in 2008, when they first introduced that, we were at the Chrysler What's New event, and Chris Shunk and I, Mike was there. He was still running pickuptrucks.com at the time.
This is before he was a Ford guy.
Yeah, Mike is now the director of product communications for Ford brand for North America. But at the time, he ran a site called pickuptrucks.com. And Mike is, if you've never met Mike, he is, shall we say, slim, to say the least.
He's slim, yes.
And we as a little joke, we had him see if he could fit into the Ram box. And he basically could fit in the Ram box. He is that skinny.
Lord.
And he's not short. I mean, he's tall. He's 6 foot tall.
Yeah, he's tall,
just,
but he's a skinny guy.
Yeah.
So you could
Ram
put
box.
2 Mike Levines in the Ram boxes, or like a Mike
One on
Levine
each side.
and like a
Like
Jill
your travel
Ciminello.
Mikes.
Jill would probably fit in a Ram box if Mike.
Oh, Jill would absolutely fit. I mean,
So you can take the head
she would
of
have
the
room to squirm around in there. I mean, yeah.
So you could take 1 Ford guy and 1 journalist with you in the Ram box.
Yeah, just driving around. The Ford guy would be very upset. The
Jill
journalist would be like, I'm writing an
"Woohoo!"
article.
Yeah, Jill's like, what it's like to ride around town in a Ram box.
I mean, she does does she still do the girl in the trunk
I think
thing?
she does. I think she does still the girl in trunk. Jill is 4 foot. For anyone who doesn't know, I think she's 4'11". She's not.
Yeah, I
don't
think so.
She's even 5 feet. I feel like she's 4'11".
Yeah, she is under. Yeah, I think she's like 4'11".
Yeah. So she's super tiny. She's a spitfire of a journalist too. She's tiny physically, personality huge.
Yes.
So and her thing is she can fit into just about any tiny little. I think she's even climbed in some frunks over the.
She definitely has.
Over the occurrence of EVs. So yeah. So either Mike Levine or Jill Ciminello, you can cram into a Ram box.
Hold on a second. I am going to drop a picture in the chat.
You have a picture of Mike?
I do have a photograph of Mike.
Can we bribe him with this? Is he trying to erase this from the internet and you've just brought it
Probably.
back?
Yeah, I would not be the least bit surprised if he had that video removed, because there is a video of him doing. I was shooting photos while Chris was shooting video of this.
Oh my gosh, he is squished into the Ram box.
Yeah.
He doesn't look especially comfortable, but he does fit.
Yeah.
He's fine.
You can see there's a fancy camera recording him.
I know. That's a good quality camera right there.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So we need to save this picture, and someday when Mike retires, this picture needs to come out and be blown up.
Or if he goes over
I will
to
include a
Ram.
link to it in the show notes.
Yeah, let's share this picture of Mike so he picks out all of us. He's like, you guys.
He'll be so angry with us.
Nah.
Or at least with Sam.
He's not going to care.
He's gonna hunt us down.
He's too good a sport.
He's gonna come up behind us with like a Bronco Raptor.
You can't come up behind anyone in that. Like,
He's like,
there's a Bronco Raptor a mile and a half away. I should move. They're so loud.
There's Mike.
All right. What about you, Robbie? Oh, did you have anything else on the Sierra?
No, I feel like we covered that one.
Okay.
I feel like we're good.
All right. Robbie, what about you?
So I drove a car and I rode in a car. Both of them were Hondas. One of them was a Honda Beat. Honda Beat was a little teeny tiny key car.
It's a mid-engine sports car.
It's a little mid-engine sports car. It's so tiny. It's a teeny tiny little key car, and I've wanted one for a really long time.
If you lay down on the ground next to that, are you taller than that car is?
I don't know. I mean, what's the dimensions of it?
You look like you are taller than this car is. What did it say?
I might be
129.7 inches. How many feet is that? Math. Sam.
Let's see. That's just over 10 feet.
Oh, so
no, I'm not that.
Okay, so not.
Yeah, I'm not that tall.
10 feet, about 10 feet, 10 inches.
It's
I'm not that
slightly
tall.
taller.
But I think you may be longer than the wheelbase.
I was gonna say, I bet he is. Wait, what's the
90 inches.
90 inches.
What is 90 divided by 12? I don't know. I can't do math anymore. Divided by 12.
90 divided.
7.5. Almost. You're almost as long as the wheelbase.
I'm close.
Yeah.
Wheelbase, one Robbie.
Yeah.
One Robbie. So I was at the battery show. I went to the car show as well, but I was mostly at the battery show with the new gig. And while I was there, everyone's good friend Mike Austin was there. Mike Austin owns a Honda Beat, and I was just like, "Hey, Mike Austin's here. I'm gonna go say hi." And he's like, "Hey, you want to go see my car?" And I'm like, "Yes, I do."
Mike lives about 5 minutes away from me here.
Yeah. And then he's like, "Oh, you want to drive it?" I was like, "Oh!" And I got very excited. It's a right-hand drive, little key car. It's a little silver thing. And I looked at it, and he's like, "The seat's already all the way back," because he knew what my first thought was. And so I didn't drive it on the road. I just drove it around the parking lot, because if we pulled out of the parking lot, it was going to take forever to get back into the thing. So I didn't, only drove for like 5 minutes up until second gear. But
Oh my God.
it's just one of those things where you look at, there's this car you want, and you really sort of like, oh my God, how do I get one? How do I get one? How do I get one? And then I drove it, and I really like the way it drove. It's really small, really tight. But also I'm very tall, and with the seat all the way back, up against essentially the firewall, my knees. And Mike had he didn't have the standard steering wheel. He had the smaller steering wheel in there, and my legs were like right up against the steering wheel. So I was doing a lot of shuffle steering. Shuffle steering is where you're moving your hands like as you're steering it. You just you're shuffling. It's a shuffle, as opposed to keeping your hand on the wheel while making it the complete turn. So love the Honda Beat. Probably won't buy one. And like getting in was it's like getting into a mini. Like one of the 90s UK minis. I think that 90s and before.
Yeah,
the actual tiny,
like from 61 or whatever until 99.
Yeah, so it's like getting in one of those where you have to be it's very calculated in how you get into this vehicle. It's also right-hand drive, just like one of the kids from Japan. And so that I'm like, okay, I know how to do this. But then like I have more room in the Mini driving those around, but I don't have as much, But I mean, it has. I don't know what it would be like if the top had been up.
Oh God, could you fit in it even?
I think so.
Really?
I think
think so?
I think I was sitting pretty low.
We had a picture of Mike in Rambox. We don't have a picture of you in a Honda Beat.
I have one. Let me
drop
see.
that. Let's see.
Let's drop that in the.
I want to see
So
these could be our pictures for the show. Just people crammed in places in cars they shouldn't be.
Crammed. Whoops. Nope. Crammed. That's our new show. What happened to wheel bearings? You know what? Crammed is doing so much better.
It's doing awesome.
We just got rid of wheel bearings.
Squeeze tall people into small cars and see what happens.
Crammed.
That's a whole thing now.
Tall people in a tiny car.
Like clown cars. Yeah.
All right, here it is. Can I just drag this over here? Here we go.
And for those not familiar with Japanese kei cars, this is a regulatory class in Japan where the cars are limited to 660 cc's and 66 horsepower. Oh, you don't look that bad. You look fine in there.
I don't think his head would have. But look, I'm trying to.
I think I did fine.
I think you would fit under the top.
I think I would fit under the pot. That's one of the things.
Yeah.
If your hair was poofy that day, your head would touch the top. If your hair was not poofy, you might be okay. You have to flat hair that day, Robbie, and then you'd be okay.
Okay. I think I would fit. Yeah. We'll see. But they're just not. The leg room is lacking. I fit. I used to own a Del Sol. And I fit in that thing, no problem at all.
But that's a much larger car than a Beat.
Yeah, it's much larger than a Beat. So I got to drive around the Honda Beat. I really enjoyed it. Maybe if there was an accident where I lost some of my legs, but they just had reattached my foot to my mid shin, I would buy one. Other than that, probably not at this point. I still want a key van. To just cruise around town as opposed to getting a truck. If you just get one of those little tiny key vans,
you'd be surprised how much mulch you can carry in one of those.
Yeah, because they're very tall, and the dogs can get in the back. We could take and go to the dog park. Totally would get rid of super happy get rid of the Jaguar for a key van. If anyone wants to trade a Jaguar X-Type for a key van from Honda or whoever, I'll give me a holler. But it was really fun. So that was fun. So that's one Honda I was in. And then last week, I was in another Honda, which was a little bit bigger and had a bit more power. I was in the CR-V Beast. If you don't know what that is, Honda sort of lost its mind at some point. Someone at Honda's like, hey, what if we got a CR-V? We slammed it. And then we put an engine and an electric engine. And we just made this insane hybrid that did 800 horsepower, which essentially, what if we just rebuilt an Indy car? What if we just made an Indy car?
That is basically what it is. This is essentially the powertrain from the 2024 Indy cars.
Yeah.
Or something very similar to it.
Yeah, it's very much the essentially what you're going to get from the Indy cars. They're moving the motor and they're doing a few other things, but that's essentially what it is. And so I got to go up to Laguna Seca, or down to Laguna Seca last weekend, and they let me sit in the car and while someone else drove it, because they're definitely not going to let me drive the beast. But it was outstanding. It was really fun, and what was cool is on the first run, tires. if you ever do track time, you know that the first lap can be a little hairy, just because the tires haven't been warmed up. And so right before we hit the corkscrew, which is you're going up a hill, you can't see where you're going.
It's a blind downhill, right, left, right, I think.
Left and right. And if you're not careful, you can go off camber on the right, so the left, and then on the right, if you're not careful, if you're too far out, you're off camber, and then you'll just slide into Anyway, so right before we hit that, when the driver put the brakes on, there was a little wiggle, and I was like, "Yeah, this is gonna be fun." But no, it was anytime there were people there it was an Indy race, it was qualifying day, and there were people there who had paid, I guess, there's tandem Indy cars that you can ride in, and so they got to do. If you're a big car person, you love cars, you love going fast or whatever, and you've never done a hot lap with a professional driver, figure out a way to do it.
Yeah.
Because it's still a lot of fun. It can be, especially their first one, you're like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Because it's so much faster than you ever thought a car should be going. But you're also riding with people who this is their job, and they're not doing 10 tenths for them. They're doing like 7 tenths.
But to you, it'll feel like 12 tenths.
Like I've been in cars where the driver is just driving like a maniac. I feel like, and they're like, "So how you doing?" "So how was the flight?" And they're blah blah blah.
My favorite ride like that of all time was in 2010. I was riding shotgun with Juan Montoya around the Milford Road Course at the GM Proving Grounds in a Corvette ZR1, and we did about 5 laps. And when Juan Montoya starts talking, it's like, he's just a chatterbox, and he's drifting this car around the corners at ridiculous speeds and chattering the whole time and telling me, what a piece of garbage a Ferrari 360 is. I can't even remember what the context was, why we got to that, but it was so much fun.
No, it's really some, if you're in a race car, you typically can't really hear unless they put comms on you, because it's just so loud. Like you had to have ear protection, or you'd just be deaf even with the helmet and the head sock. But sometimes I've been in a Camry where someone was doing a hot lap around Sonoma. I was like, what is going on? And they're talking to you the same way that you would be talking to your friend as you're driving through the Target parking lot. They're like, yeah, la 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 la, because they're not racing anyone. And they're like, I don't have to go like 10 tenths because I can't do it with this car without melting the tires. If I melt the tires in this first run, I'm gonna have to wait. I'm gonna have to do this all day and waiting, or I can do it in an hour if I don't melt the tires and just be cordial. And so so I went out. It was bonkers. It was a lot of fun. The beast is it's really interesting because Honda's it felt like for years Honda was kind of boring, and not kind of boring. Honda was boring for a long time.
Just say it. Just commit
and
to
I
it.
think the last 5-7 years they're coming out of that, and now they're sort of they're embracing who they are. They're embracing some of their fun vehicles, the enthusiast vehicles, and they're embracing EVs, which means if they're embracing enthusiasts and EVs, I'm excited to see what's coming down the pike from them. So yeah, so those are 2 cars, 2 Hondas, one teeny tiny, one with the
Well, I got to ride in the Beast back in June ahead of the Detroit Grand Prix.
Cool.
They had it here as well, and that thing is crazy. It's amazing. They took a production CRV body shell, and they cut the floor pan out of it, and they built essentially an Indy car inside of this. It's a custom built chassis, but it is for all intents and purposes a 2-seat Indy car. Actually, the front end is actually based on the NSX GT3 race car, and then the back end is mostly IndyCar because it's got the IndyCar 2.2 liter turbo, the supercapacitor hybrid system, 800 plus horsepower, and it is nuts.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It was, and it's funny because we talked about how crossovers and small SUVs are essentially hatchbacks. This thing is slammed so close to the ground, you're just getting into it like a sort of big hatchback.
Yeah.
It's just a reminder that most of these vehicles are just raised hatchbacks.
Yeah, pretty much. And, for those that are interested in going for a ride, with a professional driver on a racetrack, if you're ever in Germany, check out the schedule for public days at the Nürburgring on the Nordschleife. During public days, you can buy a ticket, and it used to be like 20 euros. I don't know what it is now. I think it's more now, but and you could take a lap, in whatever you were driving. And, people go there on all kinds of everything from old VW buses to motorcycles and supercars to, Golfs. But you can also get a taxi ride, a ring taxi ride with, and they have a bunch of professional drivers, and these are, they're racers, that drive, they used to drive M5s. I'm not sure what they're using now. They may still be using M5s. And you can ride along, shotgun with somebody that really knows the Nordschleife. And, this is such a long track that you have to drive it a lot to get to know it. These drivers know it. And, that will be better than any roller coaster that you will ever ride at Cedar Point or anywhere else.
I have driven by the Nürburgring so many times, dozens of times at this point. Never been there.
Oh, you gotta go.
It's always like, oh, do I have time? And then I look at oh my God, I don't have time. All right, maybe next time. It's always maybe next time. So maybe, I don't know.
You got to plan a trip to Germany just to do that.
I got to plan a trip to Germany where I just stay in Germany. I've been to Germany so many times. I've probably been to Germany 30 times at this point, maybe 40, a lot. I've been to Germany because 3 automakers are there. And yeah, and I've never been to Germany. It's just sort of sad, really.
Yeah.
I know people who are like, I went all the way there just to drive this car. And I'm like, oh, wow. Well, I drove by in a sports car, but didn't have a chance to stop in.
Yeah. All right. I had the Toyota Crown Limited, which is, the Crown is the replacement for the Avalon. Toyota when they first came to the North American market, they brought the Crown over here. The Crown Toyopet, I think was what it was badged as then. And they've never stopped selling the Crown in Japan. But for 40 plus years, you could not buy a Crown in North America. And last fall, they reintroduced the Crown as a replacement for the Avalon. This is their big sedan. And, it's a lot sleeker looking than any Avalon ever was. But it's also kind of unusual in its packaging. Let's put it that way.
His face was like, what word do I use?
It's like remember Micro Machines?
Yeah.
Like back in the 80s and 90s, they had these little toys called Micro Machines, and they were like Hot Wheels, super teeny tiny. And the guy who did the ads was that fast talking dude. Every car was like, it was small, but also a little huskier. Like it had been smushed together. Yeah. Like if you take an Audi TT and you smush it and it turns into a Volkswagen Bug. Like that's kind
of like what the Crown is. It sits a little, or it appears to sit a little taller, like a crossover, but it is a sedan. It's a fastback sedan. It has a trunk.
AMC Eagle. There we go.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay.
Except the Eagle, could actually do some off-roading. You can't really off-road.
AMC Eagle Light.
Yeah. So it sits up a little taller. The roof line, I think, is either the same or slightly lower than the Avalon was. It's a fastback, but it has a trunk. So, it would probably be better if it was actually a hatchback, so that you could fold the back seats down, put big stuff in the back if you needed to. The floor pan, or at least, the floor inside the car is higher than it was in the Avalon, but the ground clearance is the same, which means that there's some space in there. So it's almost like they designed this vehicle to accommodate a battery, to do a battery electric version, which they have not created and not given any indication that they're going to do. Who knows? But it's kind of peculiar packaging. So it's not quite as roomy. It's not as roomy as the Avalon was. Arguably looks better. And it certainly drives better, I think, than the Avalon. You can get it, the Crown has two powertrains available, both hybrids. So you have the standard Toyota hybrid system, the kind of classic Prius style hybrid system, ECVT. And then there's the hybrid Max, which is what they're doing on some their higher performance hybrids that they've launched over the last couple of years, like the RX and the Crown, and also in the trucks, which combines electric motor with a conventional 6-speed automatic transmission and a turbocharged engine. The Crown Limited is the middle of the three. So there's the XLE, the Limited, and the Platinum. And I had the Limited, so it was fairly well equipped, but it had the standard hybrid powertrain, which is about 236 horsepower, I think, roughly. It's a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder. So this is basically the same powertrain, that we've had in cars like the RAV4 and the Camry and the previous generation Avalon, with, it's all-wheel drive in this case. And for a big sedan, a good-sized sedan, it was remarkably fuel efficient. Like I averaged 41 miles per gallon over the week I drove this thing.
Wow.
Nice.
So it was really, if you're looking for a fairly roomy sedan that is really ridiculously fuel efficient, this is your beast. With the hybrid Max system, it gets closer to like 29, 30. The hybrid Max is definitely more fun to drive. It's about 300 some horsepower, I think 305, and it feels a lot better to drive. But this one's fine. It's got more than enough power. The interior, is generally quite nice in this thing. No major complaints. The ergonomics, everything's kind of where it should be, where you would expect it to be. It's got a nice big center touchscreen with a 12.3-inch center touchscreen with the latest Toyota infotainment system that is on pretty much all the Toyotas at this point, or close to it. They're getting there. As they update everything's getting this system, and it works well. It recognizes "Hey Toyota," to do voice commands, and it's got wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support, 11-speaker JBL audio system. The one I had the leather seats and steering wheel, heated and ventilated in the front. This is not a luxury sedan, but neither does it feel cheap. Everything is well put together. It's got all the stuff you'd expect: adaptive cruise control, lane centering, the proactive driving assist. So it's using the camera to look at the lane markers on the road, looking forward. If it sees a curve in the road and it thinks your speed is a little bit too high for that, and you're in cruise control, it'll automatically slow you down a little bit as you approach that curve and then resume your speed. It does lots of good stuff in there. It's got all the latest Toyota Safety Sense 3.0 package. So all the stuff that you want in there. Just generally a really, really nice vehicle to drive. If you're looking for, kind of a regular, large sedan, of which there are fewer and fewer available. Yeah, there's not that many of them left. So if that is what you're looking for, and interestingly, the Avalon used to be produced in Kentucky with the Camry. It's no, now the Crown, because the volumes have dropped off. And I think this is part of the reason why they decided not to do a new Avalon, but just to make it part of the Crown family. This one's now sourced from Japan. And I think they're only targeting about 20,000 sales a year in the U.S., which is not that much, but at least there is
for Toyota.
Yeah, at least there is an option for people that want a larger sedan.
Someone in my neighborhood bought one.
Did they?
Yeah, there's one down the street. I'm like, hey.
Yeah.
Wow.
The Taurus is gone now. The big GM sedans are gone now. The Dodge Charger and Chrysler 300 are going away imminently. Nissan's dropping the Maxima, and except for the high-end German brands, there's not really any other options left. So get one of these while you can, if that's what you're interested in.
That's your jam.
The Crown, the XLE starts at just under $40,000. The Limited that I had has a base sticker of $45,550, and with the handful of options that are on here, including the premium paint and the mud guards, and the advanced technology package, it came out to a grand total of $50,169. And guesses on the destination charge?
Ooh, $1,100.
Nicole?
$1,095.
Ding, 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 ding. Right on. Exactly $1,095.
Whoa.
Which, if you were going to go under, Robbie, you probably should have gone with $1. But
$1?
It's
Really?
it's pretty rare that we get one spot on.
So literally when you said ding ding, you're looking at the screen, I'm like, Robbie was perfectly on. Then I'm like, oh my God. I'm running down the aisle.
So let's see. Does that mean you win both showcases?
I
think so. I think if you get it both.
I think if you get it right on, you get both
within
showcases.
like $5 or something.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. So that's the 2023 Toyota Crown Limited all-wheel drive. All right. Shall we return back to the Detroit Auto Show?
Sure.
Do we have to?
It's a shadow of what it once was. They're not even really calling it the North American International Auto Show anymore.
Are they? They still technically do, don't they?
Yeah, but it's kind of like in fine print. North American International Auto Show, Detroit Auto Show. On the banner, Detroit Auto Show is kind of what's in big letters.
The big thing.
As it was last year, really the only companies showing anything new were the three Detroit automakers. Who coincidentally are all have factories on strike right now as we speak.
Oh, that's right.
It's the first time that has ever happened. But of the four vehicles that were shown, well, first of all, none of the European brands showed up. The Koreans were not there, although a local Kia dealer did have some Kia vehicles on the show floor. Same thing with Volkswagen; they had some VW vehicles on the show floor. But Toyota had a stand, that they put up, but did not have anything to announce at the show. And Honda kind of straddled the show. They brought the ZDX here the week before the show, a few days before the show last week, and this coming week they're going to be revealing the Honda Prologue here in Detroit, but not at the show, of course.
Not at the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of the four vehicles that were technically unveiled here, three of them were mid-cycle refreshes, and only one was all new. So let's start with the F-150, which they showed on Tuesday night in Hart Plaza. And we already talked about the big news, which was the tailgate.
The tailgate, yeah.
And it's got a new grille.
If you put them next to each other, this one and the previous one, because I saw all the leaked images and everything, I was like, wait, what's the difference again?
Yeah. Well, it is literally a mid-cycle refresh.
Yeah.
All the sheet metal, except for the if you get the proactive tailgate or something.
Proactive. I think it's proactive tailgate. I believe that.
Yeah. Whatever their branding is for the tailgate. Unless you get the fancy tailgate, all the sheet metal is carryover. Yeah. The lights are new. The grille is new. There are a few tweaks. Like you get, they have that optional modular bumper on the Tremor, which is standard on the Raptors.
Yeah,
really cool. I like that the bumper too. It has the sensors for the safety systems are built into that optional bumper, so you don't lose them. Like sometimes when they do that, they're hidden behind now, like essentially on the grill of the normal version of the car. You put the fancy bumper and fancy stuff, and you can't see it. You can still see stuff.
So they put a second set of sensors, the ultrasonic sensors and the front camera in the bumper, and then you can get that with a 12,000-pound Warn winch. which if you're going to off road, that's a very handy thing to have.
If you happen to know Sam's going somewhere with mud, you should just follow him with it.
Yeah, and then tow me out when I'm once I get stuck.
I love that's not the if he does. When I get stuck, guys, help me out. Because it's going to happen.
Always good to have a friend with a winch.
At the background presentation, one of the things that they emphasized was that they have reduced the number of buildable combinations by 90%. So basically, almost all of the options are now part of either trim levels or packages, rather than standalone options. Because I remember, back around 2010, at that point, there were, for the F-150, there was something like 14 million permutations that you could potentially build. Because you've got regular cab, super cab, crew cab, 3 or 4 different bed lengths, front wheel or rear wheel drive and 4-wheel drive, and different 4-wheel drive systems, different engines. They're not saying exactly how many combinations there are now, only that it's 90% less than what it was for 23, which is already reduced from 2010. But it's probably in the order of a couple of thousand combinations now,
which is still crazy.
Which is fine. You know what I saw? I forgot to tell you all. I saw a regular cab F-150 new that a regular person was driving. It wasn't like a fleet truck or municipality or anything. Someone bought a regular cab, white with Steelies, and I was like,
nice.
I tried to chase him down and take a photo.
Wait, I need your picture.
Someone got the base level F-150 just for around the house. I was like, oh, this person.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Somebody bought one. Go then.
Was it a long bed too? Was it the 8-foot bed?
Yeah, it was the long bed. So it was the regular cab with the long bed. I was like, oh, this person knows. They're just like, I don't have any friends.
This is a real truck person.
Yeah, they're like, I don't have any friends. If I do, I can just lay them down in the back.
Yeah. Well, your friends will be calling you when they need to move stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they don't need to ride in there. They just want you to move their stuff.
That's it. Just for stuff. It's stuff transport. That's what.
Oh, I sold the truck. I saw in your parking space last night. Nah, I sold it.
It's gone. It's gone.
Yeah.
Lost the keys.
And then the other thing they did was they dropped the base 3.3 liter naturally aspirated V6. So the 2.7 liter twin turbo is now standard equipment. That's now the base engine across the board. They also showed us the Raptor. The Raptor R for 2024 will have, quote unquote, more than 700 horsepower, which is, right now it has 700.
How
it will
much
have
exactly, Sam? Do we know?
More than 700. That's all they would say.
703.
They'll have more details on that later. So that's the F-150. And then the Cadillac CT5 got a slightly revised grille, and it's got the dashboard from the Cadillac Lyric now.
Ta-da! I like the old grill. I'm just gonna say it. Because they have the old one still there. So you look at the old one, you look at the new one, you look at the old one, you're like, oh, they shouldn't have done this.
This was a mistake.
The new one actually looks more like the V series.
Yeah, I don't know. I like the older grill.
That's fine. Yeah.
That's it. Literally, again, if you stood in front of it, you wouldn't know the difference. It's when you're sitting in the car that you're like, ooh. But that's where the money's happening.
I think the really big news, though, is that Cadillac is still building the CT5. They decided to invest the time and money to actually, build another, to refresh it and keep building these for a while. So
Cadillac.
Yeah, so that's good. And then the only new product, there was also the Gladiator, 24 Gladiator, which gets, the slightly tweaked grille and the new dashboard from the 24 Wrangler, which we drove a few months ago.
Right.
So that's it. That's all the news there. And then the only really new thing was the Acadia, the 24 GMC Acadia. What'd you think of that?
The Acadia's back, people.
It's back.
Womp, womp, womp.
Well, the full-size Acadia is back.
The full-size Acadia is back. Womp, womp, womp.
Sorry.
The thing you forgot was a car is back.
It's returned, guys. Get excited.
Yeah, so the second gen Acadia, they went to a shorter wheelbase than they did for the Traverse, because the first generation, the Buick Envoy, the GMC Acadia, and the Chevy Traverse, and there was a Saturn. I forget what the Saturn was called. They were all on the same wheelbase, the same powertrain, with the 3.6 liter V6. For the second gen, by that time Saturn was gone, and the Acadia got smaller. But they kept the third row, which was kind of useless. But they made it smaller than the Buick and the Chevy. Now it's gone back to the same size. And I don't know. What do you think of the looks?
I mean, I think it's
Sure. It's very much a sure.
It looks. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It looks good. I think it looks good, but I don't think there's anything especially.
There's nothing.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's nothing especially wow. I do like how the grill looks and the lights and stuff. I mean, I guess that's actually pretty decent looking when I've taken a better look at these things here. So, but it's not especially striking. I don't know. Would this make you turn your head if it was driving down the street?
No.
I mean, it's like, it looks a lot like any number of other big 3-row crossovers, Palisade, Telluride, Highlander, bunch of other stuff.
It looks like it has a decent, in fact, this is the picture you took, which is the third row space in there, I think, that you have on this.
No, and that was
a pretty decent third row back there. I would say like the space between that second row seat and the cushion on the third row seat. It looks like it's going to be relatively roomy. I don't know how many 3 people would fit back there, but like 2 adults, no problem.
Yeah, no, and that was one of the things with the original, the first generation and also the second generation of the Envoy and Traverse is that, because they were actually, when they launched, they were nearly the same size as the Tahoe, but they actually had more third row and rear cargo space than the Tahoe, because at that time the Tahoe still had a solid rear axle, and this was independent rear. So the third row is actually pretty useful in these things, and so
it looks pretty good.
For people looking for a 3-row crossover, this is actually a pretty good option for them. And it's it'll probably be worth considering.
Do we get pricing on this? I don't.
No, it doesn't. It goes on sale early in 24, so it's probably about 4 or 5 months away. And no pricing announced yet. It'll probably be a little bit more. It'll certainly be a little more than a Traverse, and probably a little more than a Palisade or a Telluride, because GMC is the more premium brand.
Oh yeah.
So it'll probably run from low 40s to low 60s somewhere. The Denali, was it the Denali Plus now that they have? Will probably be like 65 or something. It's gonna have Super Cruise available on here. It's got the same 15-inch portrait style screen that's in the Sierra EV, and it has the same kind of glued on volume knob that is in the Mach-E and the F-150. So
right on there.
But the thing that they did differently that I really appreciate is that they have the labels for the climate control sit along the bottom of the touchscreen, and you can touch them there. But there's also rocker switches directly below them. So there's physical controls to turn the climate on and off, auto, set the temperature, set the fan speed.
And it's got those little separators. So now it's the best car at the Detroit show. There we go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just by having that one feature, that's actually
the winner.
Cool.
Yeah.
You won the Detroit Acadia,
Good
which
job,
always makes me
Acadia.
want to say Arcadia, like the town in Southern California. But yeah.
Unless you're from Atlantic Canada, in which case Acadia would be more familiar to them.
Okay.
All right. Let's see what else. Let's go back to Honda.
Dun, dun, dun. It's a Honda-tacular today.
Yeah.
Happy Honda days, everyone.
Back in the early 1980s, Honda introduced a model in Japan, and they later sold it in a couple of other markets, a subcompact hatchback called the Honda City. And at the time, they one of the options for it was something called the Honda Motocompacto, which was a little fold-up scooter. It was a 49cc gas scooter. I think it was a 2-stroke that the handlebars folded down and the seats folded down into it, and the wheels, or at least the front wheel, folded up a little bit. And it was perfectly sized to fit into the cargo space of this tiny little Honda City.
Nifty.
And they also sold it as a standalone thing for a couple of years in Japan. They never sold it here. But the Motocompo, at least the idea behind the Motocompo, is back as the Honda Motocompacto.
Yeah.
And this time it's electric.
You know what it looks like? It looks like a suitcase. You know the suitcases that are designed so the kid can sit on them when the parent pulls them through the airport, so the kid just sits on a little suitcase. It makes me think of those little suitcases.
Oh yeah, it's exactly that, but for adults.
It doesn't it? It looks exactly like those suitcases.
Well, and it's actually, I mean, it's not that far off from the size of, a standard suit, like a check-in suitcase, not a carry-on, but a check-in suitcase, except it's only about 4 inches wide. So it's not as thick as a suitcase. And that, not including the foot pegs and the handlebars, which fold up. And it's electric, and I think it'll go about about 12 miles an hour?
No, 12 miles.
12 miles range, 15 miles an hour. So, it's small enough. It only weighs 41 pounds. So you could stick it in the back of your Honda Pilot easily, pull it out. If you have to park far away from your office or something, or you just want to use it, to go to the store or things like that, you can pull it out, unfold it, and ride it along. And actually, this thing weighs about half of the e-bike that's in my garage right now. I've got testing an e-bike that we'll talk about at a future time. And that thing weighs 75 pounds. So this thing is only 41 pounds. And Mike Austin, who we referenced earlier, he's decided he wants to order one of these. It goes on sale in November in the US, and it's going to be $995.
They're going to sell out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I'm already like, how can I get one of these? What can I do? What can I sell? What can I
sell? A kidney, Robbie.
Because let's say you drive into the city and the parking lot, or you want to drive to the outside of the city, or you want to drive, you could drive this maybe to the, let's in the Bay Area, we have BART. You don't live next to BART, so you have to drive to the BART station. You park your car. You take your little Moto Compacto, you take it onto the BART as an e-bike, essentially. It's essentially just an e-bike. You get to the city, and then you ride it along to your job. You go upstairs, you plug it in, because it's only 41 pounds. You plug it in for 3.5 hours. It recharges. San Francisco is only 7x7 anyway. But, we have a lot of hills, so it's probably going to burn through that little battery. But still, like, you're just cruising around in the bike lane. You put it into the office, and then you get back in, ride it home, get on the BART, come back over to the East Bay or South Bay or wherever you live, and then you're good to go. I can't. Or you just cruise it around town like the coolest person in your block, and they're very like, you can do all this art on the side and stickers, and so they're very much you're going to see I feel like we're going to see scooter gangs who have all
scooter gangs
who have all these, like, they're going to be art projects. It's going to be impossible to get one of these, is what I'm trying to tell you. They're going to be on the you're going to see $5,000 versions of these within a week. I think I'm going to order one now.
Just order one, and then, because you're right, and it's like people are going to make them all custom and fun and cutesy, and then sell them for even more than what they're worth.
Yeah. Orders don't start until November. I'm going to have an opportunity to ride this thing in about 3 weeks at M1 Concourse, which should be entertaining.
Wow.
I'm going to hit up somebody. I don't
know if they'll actually let us ride it all the way around the track or just on the VDA there, but
probably the VDA, because if you go to a track, there's little electric scooters everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the track is only 1.5 miles long, so they might just let us ride around the whole track.
Maybe they'll let you. That's not a super long track.
Yeah. This thing should be a lot of fun.
Ask really nice, and I bet they will.
Yeah.
If I go down to Torrance, will they let me ride? I'm trying to figure out who's gonna...
It's only got a maximum speed of 15 miles an hour, which also is significantly less than that e-bike. The e-bike will go 28 miles an hour.
Oh yeah. 15 miles. That's appropriate amount. Where
Yeah.
are you going in the bike lane? What are you doing? Are you this isn't Tour de France? You're just trying to get to work.
Well,
Settle down.
for the e-bike, you have to put it in. You have to go into the settings and
Oh, you
turn
got to
on
put it in
race
like
mode.
levels. Yeah, like the
Race
third
mode
level.
to get 28. So normally it only goes 20 miles an hour, and I was riding at 20 miles an hour yesterday.
Yeah, there's 3 different levels, and like
Yeah.
everyone's essentially like level 2, but the level 3, some of them have like you can unlock it to get to level 3.
But yeah, so the Motocompacto, I think that's
I love the
probably
name,
going to be a big success.
Motocompacto.
Oh, we're
Yeah.
gonna buy so many of those. We're gonna have a gang. It's gonna be the Wheel Bearings
Scooter
gang.
the Wheel Bangs gang.
All right. And one more sort of auto show related was the Mustang Mach-E Rally, which they first showed a prototype back in June at the Goodwood Festival of Speed. And then last week they announced that it's going to be available for the 2024 model year. Basically, this is a Mach-E GT that's been lifted and has all off-road tires on it, kind of given, kind of an 80s or 90s rally look. You can get it with these white wheels that look like 90s rally cars. And Ford's going to have somebody take one of these on the Rebelle Rally this year, which is, when is that?
Cool. It's a couple weeks. It's the middle of October. I don't know the exact dates, but it's getting pretty close.
You've done the Rebelle, haven't you, Nicole?
I did it back in 2020 in an Infinity QX. Oh my God, 80, the big one. QX.
Oh, yeah.
80?
Oh, wow.
Cramped there. The big one.
You just take naps in the back.
You know what? There was one day where they, like, you normally have to camp in your tent at the official site each night, and they put your car sort of like impound it. You're not allowed to mess around with your cars in the evening, and they're in a certain area.
But can you sleep in them?
No, you can't.
Oh.
So, but there was one night where you self camp, and I'm like, well, on the self camp night, can we sleep on in a car? And they're like, well, if you want to. I'm like, yeah, heck, I do. We like rolled the seats all the way back. I had the best night's sleep in a QX80 in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, so the rally covers 2,500 kilometers, which is about 1,600, 1,700 miles
Yeah.
across the desert in Nevada and California. And it's unique in that I think it's only women competitors, right?
Yes, it's only women. It's teams of 2. It's only women. And you don't use any kind of tech anything to do your navigation. They give you GPS coordinates that you have to map out onto little topographical maps each morning. So you do it each morning. Then you have to.
So those are waypoints that you have to get
Those
to?
are the waypoints, and there's like sort of like hard, medium, and like easy. They're color coded, so there's some that are very easy, have a giant green flag. Then there's some that are a little bit harder, and it might be just like a small like blue ribbon tied to something, or like a stick with sticking out of the ground, or a bush that has a blue ribbon. And there's others that don't have anything marked at all, so you don't know. You're totally relying on how
Just
well
hope.
did you get there, and you have a little thing that you click when you're on the right spot. So if you're within so close, like when the green and the blue, when you found it. The black one, you're like, I think I found it. So you're clicking, and you get points if you get it. But if you're just rando out there, they will actually deduct points. Like you had no idea where you were by that black marker. So you really don't want to click unless you made the effort to I think.
Ma'am, you were at an Arby's. We can see it on the GPS.
Arby's, you were
I needed
not
an
at the
Arby's.
black checkpoint. So it's super challenging, and it's hard on the vehicles. Like even people who are very much in really true off-road vehicles, because there's a 4x4 and there's like a crossover class. So a wide variety of vehicles make this, and even some of the most tricked out hardcore vehicles have problems, have issues, and it's not because they can't do it, but like you're out there for all those days in a row, going all day over rough terrain. You're going fast when you can go fast. You're going, over rocky things where you do. It is a challenging competition, both for the people who are driving and navigating and for the vehicles themselves. So it is a heck of a test for a vehicle to come through it in one piece.
So if society collapses and we don't have GPS anymore, you can still get around. Is that what you learned while you were there?
I learned that if society collapses and I can still get around if somebody else tells me where I'm going, because I'm not a navigator. I'm not good. I can plot the points like a champ.
You can follow directions from your navigator.
Yes, I can follow directions from my navigator. Actually, plotting the points, like going with the GPS, I was super good at that, like using the little rulers. But then when you're driving, it's like you really have to have at any one moment, somebody has to be driving and somebody has to be navigating. It's not like you can glance down as you're driving because you're like,
Yeah.
So you can't really do both. I mean, you could take turns and I could drive today and you could drive tomorrow kind of thing. But I drove the whole time. So I had a navigator who was 100% responsible for like, okay, to get to that based on what I'm seeing out the window, what I'm seeing on this topographical map and what my compass is telling me we head that way. So, I mean, I can read a compass and stuff, but I am navigation.
Like
was
on a
not my
boat.
thing. Yeah. Yeah.
When they have the little things and the
little
sextants and the...
Yeah, we have little
Do you guys have
compasses, little
sextants?
string. No, we have a little compass with a
No.
little string and like you line it up and you
Oh,
like
man.
eyeball it like where it's going to be. And you can't see me using the cord from my microphone.
It looks pretty cool, though.
It looks pretty cool.
I'm very jealous now.
Thanks. So
I'm just excited about learning how to do that because I was a big
actually
math
really-
nerd as a child.
It's really cool. It's very cool to learn. And it's one of those things that's neat because when they first show you, you look at it and you go, what? Like it makes no sense. Like, I'm supposed to do what? And it just is really overwhelming. And then after a little bit, like when it clicks, it's like a light bulb goes off in your head. And you're like, oh, I get how to do this. Once you get it, you get it. And then of course the challenge is always finding your way once you're in the desert and that's all you have. Like they cover up your GPS screen and everything. Once you're there and you're tired and you're hot and you're stressed, it's a whole different ball game. So
they just cover it up? They don't like... I guess they can disable it.
Well, because disabling it can get tricky. Like how much, you know what I mean? It's not like a simple thing to disable it. So they take a piece of, like they literally take cardboard and they use, you know, the kind of tape they use to keep you from taking a camera picture of something. So if you move the tape, then it leaves, the tape shows you pulled it off. It's the same thing. They tape it up. And then if you have, like you have to get rid of your phone, your watch, any kind of your laptop, everything has to be at the beginning of the event. You have to put it into this thing and you can keep it with you, but like you have to literally show at the end. They tape it all and seal it all up and you have to show when you arrive at the end, like here it is.
But you didn't do the
all
thing.
still taped up. They look inside, they can see that your GPS is all taped up. So you have none of that, you know.
Could you get like an old Nokia phone and still call your friends? Hey, what's going on?
No, that's cheating. No, you know, the idea is that you're just doing this without.
You're off the grid.
You are off the grid. Like the only way someone can get a hold of you is like there's, you know, in an emergency, your family can call and like, look, I got to get a hold of her. That's about it. So you are 100% off the grid for that whole time, living in the desert in a tent. And driving around all day. Yeah, it's actually it's a very cool experience and very challenging, like I said, for the competitors and for the cars. So any car that does it, that says something pretty cool about that car.
It'll be interesting to see how the Mach-E does as an EV.
Yeah,
It's a rally car. It's not really an
EV
off-roader.
stuff.
It's a different type of off-roader.
Well, and they started doing EV stuff a couple years back. Like Emmy Hall did it in the Rivian. That's the one that's sticking in my head. She's not
I know
the only person.
Lordstown Motors tried to take one of their trucks there last year, and I think it made it about 50 miles before it died.
Because they do things where like there's certain, normally you can get all the way back through the whole day. You should be able to do it on whatever tank of gas your car has, you know. But of course EVs are a little bit different. So, and there's a few occasions where they have you doing a longer distance and they have like a gas fueling tank basically, and you stop and you can get, you know, 10 minutes of fuel or whatever. You know, it's a very limited amount of fuel. And they do a different thing for the electric vehicles because, of course, it's not the same topping off in EV, you know, so they let them charge. So they don't set you up to fail this. Like you have to work really hard to make it work. But like even the EVs, they have a way where, and they give them some leeway with timing wise because you need to sit and charge. You can't do anything about that, you know. So they do some of that kind of stuff so that you can still do it in an EV, but it is definitely more challenging.
Yeah, it looks like they're working with a company called Renewable Innovations to support electrified vehicles.
Yeah.
So they've got this truck with all these solar panels on it and a generator to presumably to charge up the EVs and things like that.
I think, am I remembering right? I thought they were even going to have some of that was going to be powering some of this stuff at camp. I somehow thought.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So that it's not like you don't have all these generators running, that you'll have some. So it's another way to just be kinder to the environment kind of dealio.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're also using hydrogen fuel cell generators to help charge the vehicles.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, no, this is cool, and it's 10 days, 8 days of competition, and the aforementioned Jill Ciminillo is doing it again this year with her driving partner Kristen Shaw, another friend of the show, and they are for the second year in a row running a Hyundai Santa Cruz in this thing. So
and they've been doing all sorts of practice to They did great last year. They want to do better this year. They just want to beat. They want to do better than they did. Like they just want to improve. They want to do better. They want to learn from because it's a huge learning experience, especially the first time. So they want to learn and do better. And their team, it's called Team Brute Squad, is the name of their team.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and they're excited. I was talking to Jill the other day, so they're really excited to give it another go.
Yay!
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right. Let's answer a couple of listener questions. First up comes from Wes. It says, I'm interested in the Audi e-tron GT and Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo, but have never purchased a vehicle in this price range before. So I had some questions. Everyone always mentions that you should never pay sticker price. Well, that hasn't been true for at least for the last couple of years.
That kind of broke.
If you're lucky if you could have paid sticker price in the last couple of years.
You can get sticker price. You should like punch your arm in the air. Like, yeah.
Anyway, does that apply to this class of vehicles? Well, let's answer that. Even before the pandemic, I would say probably not.
These are pretty much.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about premium vehicles like this, maybe an Audi before you might have been able to haggle a little bit on the price, but probably almost certainly not a Porsche.
No.
And you would have been able to haggle a lot on the Audi. You're not going to take that number down very. Yeah. So
maybe you could get like a free option.
Yeah. Not before the pandemic. Definitely not after the pandemic.
Yeah. Anyway, does the buying experience still involve haggling? Is it more straightforward? More straightforward. And in fact, especially with Porsche, maybe less so with Audi. If there's something you want that's not on the menu, you can pretty much order whatever you want if you have a deep enough checking account.
Right.
If you want a custom color, absolutely, sir. We would be happy to paint it for you to match the drapes in your bedroom, or whatever.
Open your wallet and we'll happily do that for you.
Yes.
Have a nice day.
Let us just do a quick credit check on you. Check your check. Show us your checking account balance. Okay. Yeah.
Give us your PIN number.
Yeah. We can take care of it.
How much is it? Just give us your PIN and don't ask.
Yeah.
If you're asking, it's too much.
Yeah. Does this mean that there are no deals to be made? Correct. Have you have you heard of any reliability issues? I don't know. I don't.
Not with either of these vehicles, actually.
No, actually.
I haven't heard nothing.
Yeah.
I mean, at literally every vehicle that's out in the world, I'll hear something. Like I love the Ioniq 5. I know someone who bought an Ioniq 5. It had a brain. It had a battery draining issue. Like the 12-volt battery kept draining, and they couldn't figure out what it was. It's a whole big, mess. But I've heard.
That's actually been common on a bunch of EVs, though. So it's not uniquely a Hyundai issue.
So I haven't heard anything from anyone about the e-tron GT or the
Same. I've heard
Taycan.
no specific issues. Yeah.
Let's see. Also, what are your quick takes on these vehicles? I've only driven the Audi, but
Same.
Robbie, you've driven both.
I have driven both. I've driven all the Taycans. I would say, were we looking at the Cross Turismo? Just get the Cross Turismo. The e-tron GT
or the Sport Turismo, if you can get that.
Or the Sport Turismo. You can get the Cross Turismo and be very, very happy.
Yeah. There's one in my neighborhood.
Yeah, the e-tron GT is a slightly it's more it's a classy. It's not as aggressive as the Taycan.
More luxury oriented.
Yeah. It's still a performance vehicle, but it's not as like as the Taycan. And that's sort of the big takeaway is that if you want a lot, you're still going to get a lot of torque. You're still going to get a really great driving experience, but it's not going to be as aggressive as the Taycan, which is just like, let's do this. And you're still getting, a very luxury experience. But the Cross Turismo, because you're getting a wagon, that's the one to get. If I had a lot of money and they're like, what car do you want? I would get the Taycan Cross Turismo. I've driven it around here. I drove it in
if you have a lot of money. How
Europe.
much is it? Do you know offhand? I didn't mean to make you Google.
Taycans start around 100,000.
Around 100.
Cross Turismo. Dun dun dun. We're gonna find out.
He's Googling people.
Googling.
I didn't mean to make you Google. I thought maybe
$101,900.
101. Pretty good guess there, Sam.
As the starting price for a Cross Turismo?
First Cross Turismo. It says a driving range of 235. I'm going to tell you that Porsche underreports its driving ranges. It takes the lowest number the EPA will give it. So it's probably closer to 250.
Yeah, and every publication that has done formal range test on the Taycans and the e-tron GTs, they always get way more than the label value for the range.
When I did the Taycan, the original drive program, and then the EPA number came out, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And I was driving through Andros Crest Highway up over the back and then down into Pasadena, which is, you're going up a hill. It's aggressive driving. Yes, you're going downhill, but you're never going to make as much, electricity as you deplete when you're driving like that. And it was still better than what the EPA said. I'm like, what? I was really confused. And then you talk to them and they're like, well, and then everyone does the tests and everyone's like, oh, okay, well, you're going to get much better than what they say.
Yeah, most tests of the Taycan, the various Taycan variants, get anywhere from 275 to almost 300 miles. So you'll have no problem at all with range.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
And these things charge fast. I mean, they will charge it, assuming you can find an EA charger that is fully functional. These things are capable of charging it up to 200, up to 270 kilowatts. So they charge faster than pretty much anything out there.
Yeah, they're just sort of the quickest. They're 800-volt architecture. I mean, everything about them is just fantastic. And again, just the regular, because the Sport Turismo is going to cost you what, $141? I think it looks like. So you don't need that.
You don't need that.
You don't need that. Save yourself $40,000. Get like a Honda Accord to throw in the house too.
Just for your sidecar.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is with the Cross Turismo or the Sport Turismo, either one. If you're planning on carrying anybody in the back seat, they will have a lot more headroom in the back seat than they would in the standard Taycan or the Audi.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm very much team Cross Turismo. The Audi e-tron GT, I love that car. It's a great car. The utility of having, you're spending all this money, you might as well get a little extra utility. And I'm not going to say what I was going to say. It's about running a car from an Italian car company.
All right. Next up, Lawrence in the Desert says, hey, gang, love all the EV and charging coverage. I was wondering why current gas stations do not seem to be concerned with the future. Why are they not embracing the future and setting up to charge EVs? It seems their future depends on adapting to the coming wave of EV economy. They're uniquely suited in California, where real estate is always an issue, and many have the convenience markets already. Should we be looking at lawmakers to nudge these businesses into the future? Just a question that I've not seen any info on future plans. Thanks for all the content and keep cheering the manuals. My 2020 Civic Si 6-speed is awesome, Lawrence in the Desert.
Yay.
It is awesome, Lawrence.
So, yeah, I mean, I agree. In fact, there's a new gas station like half a mile away from me here. Like they literally built a brand new from the gas up gas station, which I have not seen in a long time. From scratch. There was a gas station that was on that lot that closed about 10 years ago and was rotting. They finally demolished it, and then about a year and a half ago they built a brand new gas station there. And I was shocked that they didn't bother to put in at least one charger there. I mean, if you're gonna build from scratch, but it's a gas station is actually an ideal place to be putting DC fast chargers because of the fact that almost all gas stations have a convenience store, maybe even a little fast food joint in there, place where you can sit down, have a cup of coffee, have a burrito or something or a burger while you wait to charge. Or some gas station sushi if you're really living dangerously.
Living on the edge.
But for existing gas stations, there are challenges because putting in DC fast chargers is really expensive. Mm-hmm. Like the chargers themselves, you're looking at, depending on the speed, $100 to $150, maybe $200,000 each. This is not inexpensive equipment. And the other thing is you need power there. And, my company, one of the things we do on the consulting side of our business, we have this tool that we work with clients on things like figuring out where to site charging stations. And one of the big challenges is, there's not necessarily the kind of power you need for DC fast chargers at every location. In fact, sometimes, on opposite sides of an intersection, there may be power available on one side of that intersection and not on the other side, or not sufficient power. And if you wanted to put DC chargers in there, you'd actually have to do a substation upgrade, which now that drives the cost and the time, potentially into the millions of dollars and potentially a couple of years to get a new substation. So it is kind of complicated, but it is absolutely something that gas station owners are looking at, and the Transportation Energy Institute, formerly known as the Fuels Institute, we published a white paper with them earlier this year that looks, at kind of the future of what because it's a trade organization for fuel retailers. And, this is one of the things they need to be looking at. The other thing to keep in mind is that even with the pace, the accelerating pace of EV adoption in the U.S., we got 290 million registered vehicles in the United States.
Yeah.
About 2 million of those are EVs. And the rest all use liquid fuels of some sort.
Gas stations aren't going to run out of customers anytime soon. So it's it's not as a real far future thing.
Decades
cool,
and
like,
decades and decades of EV
so right
gas
now,
stations.
they're in no danger of seeing their customer base just deteriorate over.
At our current projection for EV adoption in 2030, roughly about 10% of the U.S. vehicle fleet will be electric. So
Which
that
is
means
a big number, but also 90%.
Yeah, they're still using liquid fuels. So they're going to be around, into the 2040s and beyond.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even when you're, even if the sales of EVs, like let's say 2040, we're selling like 75% of the vehicles are EVs on the road. That's still legacy vehicles. Plus, they're 12 years old now. By 2035, the lifespan of a car is probably going to be 15, 16 years at least.
Yeah.
Just because manufacture just continues to improve. So, yeah, it's not like gas stations are going anywhere.
Yeah.
That said,
that's a big
there's
thing.
a 7-Eleven like 2 blocks from my house that I go to all the time, or I used to. It was a Valero, and they demolished the entire place and built a 7-Eleven, and I would drive by it all the time. They have a big fence around with the little green, privacy shade, I guess. And I was like, are they going to put an EV thing? Are they going to put an EV thing? Are they going to put an EV? And I don't really need it because it's literally down the street from my house, and I can charge at my house. And they didn't. And I'm just like, come on. And 7-Eleven had announced that they were going to do charging at their stations. And it makes sense because you can get a Slurpee, you can get like a microwave burrito, you can get those little taquitos. Yeah. You can get sketchy sushi. They got those little taquitos that are like on a roller that they have all the time.
Also
and I'm
sketchy.
I'm just like, you guys are rebuilding this whole thing. And it's next to, we have like one of those substation thing, like a electric, I don't know, I guess it's a substation that is like right next door to it. I'm like, come on.
They do say that, like, I think what Sam was saying, like every person I've spoken to who is in any way on the EV, on the charging industry side of things, every conversation always comes back to exactly what Sam said. It is so stinking expensive to install them. And even when it seems like it should be easy, like you said, it could be one side of the road, cool. Other side of the road, nope.
Not so much.
And it's not like 20 grand or 50 grand. I'm like, that'll be another $200,000 and it will take an extra 4 years. Like it makes it so cost prohibitive and time prohibitive that I think sometimes we can't do this.
I think a lot of them are just waiting for the public utilities to catch up in order to like make it, so they're like, okay, well, yes, I want to put an EV charging station at my gas station, but why don't I wait until Southern California Edison or CalEd or PG&E or whoever catches up and gets it so this is a less, let them take care of the infrastructure for this.
Right.
That way, when I want to do it, it's not like, like Sam said, one side of the street or the other side of the street.
Well, and you
we can
nailed
do
it
this.
though, like Robbie. It's like we all think of the EV infrastructure, right? It's just like the EV infrastructure isn't there because we don't have charging stations. Well, the charging stations aren't there because we literally don't have the electrical grid infrastructure in place, and that's what makes it so expensive for the charging stations. So that, like, sort of like layers of a pyramid, that base infrastructure has to get there almost first, and then the charging stations are easier to install.
But there is an old BP station, 3/4 of a mile away in the opposite direction from that brand new one that actually last year did put in a pair of ChargePoint DC chargers behind the store. And, GM and EVgo are partnering with Pilot Flying J truck stops to put in chargers at something like 500 of those locations across the country.
Awesome. That's great.
And I don't know for certain, but I would be shocked if companies like Buc-ee's are not, looking at adding charging stations.
But they'd have
you got 120 gas pumps.
Right. So what do you match? Like if you have 120 gas pumps, what's your equivalent? Normally most places have like 4 EV chargers. They're going to have like 85 or something, like a whole parking lot of EV chargers back behind the Buc-ee's.
Well, they're I think one of the Tesla supercharger stations in California now has something like 96 superchargers.
No way.
Yeah. And it's in like 96? Bakersfield or somewhere. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No, they just keep getting bigger and bigger.
That's crazy.
So you will see chargers showing up at locations like gas stations over the next several years, and especially now with the NEVI funding, the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, that $7.5 billion. These companies are all looking at, okay, can we get some of this, can we get some of this money and do this and get prepared and get future proofed? So this is going to happen. It's just, it takes time. It takes time for, even if you want to do it, even if you've decided you're going to do it, it takes time for permitting. It takes time to get the equipment, to get it installed, get it commissioned, on the, do all the inspections, because you're talking really high voltage equipment. This is not, this dangerous equipment. So it's not a trivial thing. It's not like just going out and buying a level 2 charger for your house and plugging it into a spare dryer outlet. It's,
and then you need the people to do it, and we don't have enough. That's like essentially my job now at SAE, is like helping people learn the skills to do these jobs, because we do not have nearly enough people to build all these chargers.
Well, there was a
maintain these chargers. Just everything needs to be done.
There was a booth at the auto show this week, from IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. That's the big electricians union, and a couple of other organizations that are all partnering to train electricians and certify electricians to do this kind of work, because there's a lot of new stuff to learn when you're dealing with this kind of equipment.
If you have a kid and your kid's like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, there's electrician.
Learn a trade.
Yeah.
Be an electrician, plumber, carpenter, because I can guarantee you that those jobs are never, ever going to be replaced by an AI.
Yeah.
They're never going to be replaced by a robot. If you know, like HVAC, plumbing, electrical, carpentry, there will always be work, and good paying work. You're
get on a nice union.
You're not sitting in front of your computer watching YouTube, while you're on a Zoom call. But you can make a really good living doing that. You might even be able to afford a Taycan Cross Turismo.
Oh yeah, you totally afford it. Yeah, if you're an electrician, you're living the dream. I'm just like, man, is it too late for me to become an electrician? The more I'm talking to automakers and battery makers and all these companies, and I'm trying to get them. We're trying to figure out how to, get folks, excited and in the electrical field. And the whole time I'm like, man, maybe I should just quit my job and do that instead.
Right, well, we can be wheel electricians or something.
Yeah,
we can all rebrand.
All right. Finally, from Andy in New Jersey. Wanted to get your thoughts on EV charging at home, as my wife and I are testing out the EV waters. We just leased a 2024 Wrangler 4xe as my wife's primary vehicle, and I'll be picking up a 2023 Mach-E later this month or next. We're okay level 1 charging for now, since she works from home and I have a take-home vehicle from work. But for our convenience, I see a level 2 charger in the near future. That, however, brings up the question of what kind of charger to get. Is Jeep Stellantis also going NACS? Should I get an inexpensive J1772 and plan to replace it in 3 years? Hardwire a nice 11 kilowatt charger and plan on adapters? Something in between? Or am I worrying about this too much? If it matters, both cars will be garaged and the house will need an electric service upgrade to accommodate any charger, so options are open.
Has Jeep said they're doing NACS yet?
They have not announced anything yet,
officially.
but they are part of that joint venture that was announced with six other brands
Yeah, I saw
to build
that.
30,000 chargers that will have both CCS and NACS. My guess is that sometime in the next couple of months, the next
They'll
few
do
months,
it.
when we start to see, the first of the production Jeep EVs being shown, perhaps maybe the LA Auto Show before, or maybe at CES. We will definitely be seeing something soon from
Yeah.
Jeep, and the other Stellantis brands. And my guess is that's when they will probably make the announcement of going to
I bet.
NACS.
Yeah.
But I mean, all three of us have chargers at home. You two both own plug-in vehicles.
Yes.
Let's hear your thoughts first.
I mean, we didn't get anything. We have the car that you're looking at, the Wrangler 4xe. So we weren't looking at something that was like specifically fancy enough to say, okay, when are charging times? Can I set it to charge at this time of night and that time of night? Some of them are very fancy. Some of them have a lot of stuff built in. So you can really finesse exactly when you're charging your vehicle. So you're getting the cheapest charging times, and you can look at all this on your phone. Like, I'm a fan of just like plug it in, let's go basic, and let's just plug it in and have it go. So I think especially we're going to have the Mach-E, you want something at home. I think that makes sense. You can probably charge it when you're out and about, but again, you face all the issues that we all face, and it's kind of nice just have a full charge battery and not have to deal with trying to find someplace when you're out and about. I think it's a little bit preference, and I feel like I'm like sort of shuffling it off, but I think you need to look and see what's out there, what's within your budget, what's available, because they're not all always available all the time. Much like cars, a lot of this stuff, availability can be a little bit wonky. And also deciding whether you want to have one that's hardwired into your house, or you want to have one that's plugging into the dryer outlet, like Sam just mentioned a minute ago, or like decide what you want and what will work best for you. But I don't think there's one that's necessarily like wrong. Like, there's a lot of really good chargers out there. Take a look at the reviews out there for it, and just make sure you're not somehow buying one that gets bad reviews, and stick with one of the brands that, like, when you Google and you find brands that come up as the biggest brands, go with one of those and not Billy Bob's EV charger.
Billy Bob's EV charger. That's what I got. No.
You got
Well,
Billy Bob's EV
whatever you do,
charger.
make sure it's UL approved.
Yes.
Underwriters
Yeah.
Lab approved.
Right.
Yeah. So we put in a whole other plug on the outside of our house so we could plug in chargers. I have the juice box right now. We decided to go. We were just plugging it in, but just for the I travel a lot. My wife shouldn't have to deal with like, oh, it only charged like 40 miles last night versus if you throw in a level 2 and no matter what the vehicle is charged. So we went with a level 2 for us to put for the electrician to come out and to have the inspector to come out. It was like $750. That's gonna and I live in Northern California, but I've heard it's more expensive in other places, which seems completely bizarro world to me.
I think mine was like I think I almost did a little bit closer to 1,200 for mine, but literally it was a little bit the timing. I had to go with one that was hardwired, and because I was doing it closer towards when the pandemic started, was in the middle of, it was hard. It was literally the wire. Like, it cost more for me to do one that was hardwired than it would have done for me the one that was just plugged into, because they have to run different amounts of wire.
Yeah.
And the wire happened to be the guy, like the electrician. I originally was going to get a plug-in one. And like when I had to switch, because I couldn't find one that was a plug-in that wasn't going to take like 4 months to come in, the electrician actually apologized and said, "Hey, I'm really sorry. I got to charge you next to, or whatever it was, $200 or something." He's like, "It's literally the cost of that stupid wire. It's so expensive right now." So that's what it cost me. I think it ended up net was about $1,200 for me to have it done, and I had mine installed inside my garage because I didn't want to deal with the snow and the rain. Mostly the snow. I didn't want to have to deal with the snow. So
Yeah, and the cost varies widely depending on where your service panel is in your house, where you want the plug or the charger, and if you need a panel upgrade. I mean, if you have an old house that's got 100 amp service, you're going to need to upgrade that to a 200 amp panel at least. 200 for most people, 200 amps is going to be fine. It's going to be more than enough. But 100 amps is definitely not going to be enough.
Yeah.
And again, depending on where that's located, where the panel is relative to your garage or your driveway, if it's on the opposite side of the house, you got to run wire all the way across your basement. then that's obviously going to cost more because that heavy gauge wiring is not inexpensive. I also mine to install NEMA 1450 outlet, so that's a 50 amp outlet in the garage, 4-pin dryer outlet. Altogether was like $700 for mine. But I have an easy configuration where the panel is. It's on the wall. It separates the house from the garage. And just
our panel, like our panel to the box is literally right next to where they put the plug,
that makes
because
it easy.
right next to where we were going to park, and I'm like, oh, this works out really well. So it's we decided not to do it in the garage just because of all this wood stuff in my garage that I work on, and art supplies and crap. So it was, but yeah, once you get the level 2, you can get the sort of dumb ones. They're just like you just plug it in.
Yeah.
We decided, we got the one with the little with the app, and it's just helpful for when things are weird, and I'm a big nerd and my wife is not, so it's easier when if things go weird, I can like adjust it or change it or restart it or whatever from like an app while I'm in another country, and so that kind of helps. But really, you don't need to get that, to be honest.
Yeah. Well,
if you can either set up the for us, we had to schedule it. We scheduled it with the box because sometimes someone will visit and they have a car. But you could just schedule it with your car as well.
Yeah, most EVs allow you to schedule the charging.
Exactly.
You just plug it in, and then when it gets to the time, it'll start charging. In terms of whether to get hardwired or get a plug, there's a couple options here. On the Tesla, we talked about this a few weeks ago. I think Tesla just introduced a new version of their wall box that basically has the Magic Dock on it. So it's got an adapter on it. So it's got the NACS connector, but it's also got the built-in CCS or 1772 adapter on it that's in the box. So, when you pull it out, if you just pull out by the handle, it pulls out, you get just the NACS, but you can also press the button and it locks on the 1772 adapter on there. So it comes out together, the NACS and the adapter already on it. And then you can plug that in. So if you get one of those, and I think they're $550 for that one. And you can hardwire it or plug it in. And that way you're future proofed. So when it comes, if you get a future EV that is NACS, which if you get other EVs, they will almost certainly be NACS. By the time you do that, you could still use the same charger, without having to store an adapter somewhere and remember to plug it in. It's all right there. And so that's one option. The other option, if you want to go lower cost, is to get an outlet, a 1450 outlet, and you can get anything from very basic, charging cords, and because they're limited to 40 amps, so you're going to get 9.6 kilowatts. The difference between 9.6 and 11 kilowatts, you're probably not going to notice that if you're charging overnight.
Yeah.
It's not going to be a big deal. And so you can get, like I have Electron 9.6 kilowatt charging cable that, it's not smart or anything. There's no monitor. There's just a little display on the thing that tells me, when I plug it in, how much current it's pulling, what voltage, and when it's all done, it tells me how many total kilowatt hours it fed to the car. Or you can get, like I'm also still testing this Autel home charger that it's Wi-Fi connected, and I can monitor it with the app on the smartphone and see what rate it's charging at, and see the charging curve and all that stuff. Those are about various brands run about $500 to $700 for one of those. And again, 9.6 kilowatts with the plug-in version. If you want to, you can also take those, if in the future you decide you want to hardwire something, most of these you can, at least the wall boxes, not the charging cables like my Electron, which was that Electron was $300. The wall boxes, most of them you have the option to either hardwire it or plug it in. So if some point in the future you want to replace that with a hardwired one, you can also have the outlet. You can have an electrician take out the outlet and just hardwire it to the same wiring. So that's probably your best bet for now, is to either get the a NEMA 1450 outlet and pick a charger you like, or get that Tesla wall box with the Magic Dock.
Yeah.
I think they call it the Tesla Universal Wall Box.
Yeah. It's $595, shipping in October.
There you go.
They know what they're doing when it comes to charging.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to say about Tesla, they can charge like there's no tomorrow.
Absolutely. All right, that's it for the questions this week. I'm also going to tack on a couple of interviews that I've done in the last couple of weeks right after we say goodbye. The first is with Stefan Hartung, who is the chairman and CEO of Bosch. That is the world's largest automotive supplier, and they also make a bunch of other stuff. They make appliances and
They
tools.
make so many things.
Yeah. And so I had a chance to sit down with Dr. Hartung at IAA in Munich the other week, and had a good conversation. So have that. And then I've got Brian Latouf, who is the Global Chief Safety Officer for Hyundai Motor Group. Talked to him this week. They had the ribbon cutting for the new Hyundai Safety Testing and Investigation Lab in here, just about 10 minutes away from me here in Superior Township, Michigan. So we talked about what they're doing there. So we got Brian and Dr. Hartung, and that will be coming up momentarily. Those have already been in the Patreon feed for about a week or so. So if you want to get these interviews earlier, Patreon supporters get those early, and then we put them in the main show here. And there's more coming. I've got more stuff that I recorded at IAA that'll be coming out over the next couple of weeks in the main show and for patrons before that. So thanks, everybody.
Bye.
And we'll talk to you next time.
Bye-bye.
Hello, everyone. I had the chance to go to the IAA Mobility Show in Munich last week. Spent a couple of days there, talked to a whole bunch of people, and I'll be sharing some of those interviews here on Wheel Bearings. First up, we've got Dr. Stefan Hartung, who is the CEO of Bosch. Bosch, or Robert Bosch GmbH, is the world's largest automotive supplier. They make all kinds of components that you find in many modern vehicles from almost every automaker in the world. And we got to spend about 15 minutes together talking about the transformation of the auto industry. So here is my conversation with Dr. Stefan Hartung. Thank you for giving me some time today. Pleasure to meet you both. So I guess where I'd like to start is taking a look at your feelings. Bosch has gone through a lot of transformation, as has the rest of the industry over the last several years. Bosch, you formed the cross-domain computing group, but a lot of changes in the industry, the shift to electrification, more ADAS and automated driving. How do you feel as a company that Bosch is progressing through this transformational period?
Yes, it's always a matter of how far you go and at what speed. And guess what? We are kind of in a constant transforming environment. That's what we have to see. This is what happens, right? So whenever you do a transformation, as a big company, it's always the case, first of all, the first step is, do you want to transform at all? Because it's so great to be where you are, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we pass that point. So we have decided we go for it. Yeah. And by the way, we first went for it just for cross-domain computing. Mm-hmm. And then we said, oh, wait a moment. The whole thing is changing. The whole view on cars is changing. We call it software-defined vehicles. So we have to design probably the entire company in a new way, the car part of it. Mm-hmm. So we went to that thing. So we did another wave of transformation. And I think this will not be the last. The question is how to come to a point where you design an organizational setup which is flexible enough so that you don't have to redesign it all the time. Because organizational setup should follow business strategy and architecture and not the other way around. And there's always the risk, once you have an organizational setup, that this reflects on the business strategy in a good or bad way, whatever is appropriate, but there is a relationship. So what we try now is to really go dynamically forward and build via business strategy and strategy setup a organization form which is then flexible enough to, let's say, supersede the next waves of transformation in itself. That's the idea. That's what we build these large domains. That's what we build also the across domains. So that's where we have across computational know-how, which is available for all domains because these computers are more alike in medical domains. And that's where we have bigger domains because these individual steering, braking, and injection and all that kind of stuff is probably merging into larger areas of the vehicle.
Okay. So yeah, that's an interesting example, across the software domain, a lot of the skills and expertise, across whether it's propulsion control or ADAS or body control or infotainment are going to be very similar. There's obviously some differences because of safety requirements in certain areas. On the hardware side, does that expertise transfer work reasonably well on the hardware side as well?
Well,
Or did you do something different there?
No, on the software side, you can disaggregate this elements of business leadership and people leadership. You can do that, and then associate people to business projects as you need them, or in development project as you need them. So that's a new organizational principle that you say. Normally it was that the business kind of owns also the right for the resources, right? It's their people, it's their office space and all that. Now we see that as all liquid because the business is elastic. So you have to have your resources elastic. So the resources have to reside somewhere else and you have to inject them. For this kind of work, it's absolutely possible and perfect. That's these agile organizational frameworks. But for the factory, you still have to have some factory because there's assets involved. And these assets are not liquid, they are assets fixed. And that is why you have to have a much more planning-oriented, forecasting-oriented, technically oriented setup where you gain elasticity through various locations. So you need certain sites where you have to have 1 plant, 2 plants, 3 plants, right? And you have to have a different approach. It is that way. Hardware is different in this protection and software. And by the electronics hardware still is similar, but some of the other hardware is completely different worlds, right? Precision manufacturing here, stamping there, welding over there, and electronics manufacturing here, that's a different thing.
And Bosch, has always been fairly diverse, at least, in the mobility space, is where I'm most familiar with. The company has made so many different parts of the vehicle anyway. So you certainly had that expertise within the larger organization. I guess it really comes down to how you organize it and trying to find ways to give you that flexibility as the market demands change. As you shift from internal combustion and fuel systems to electrification, as you've been doing, for example, in the plant in Charlotte, in South Carolina, moving from diesel fuel systems to building electric drive units.
And Charleston. Not Charlotte.
Yes. Misspoke.
It's okay, don't worry.
I've actually visited the plant last
and that's the way we do it. That's the way we do it. Well, we're still bound to the floor space, we're still bound to the factory buildings, and when you have to build, construction, there's also some things that, that is a bit more inflexible than you do software.
So, one of the, the industry as a whole has experienced some unique challenges over the last 2-3 years, starting with the pandemic. But as we went through that, a number of new things popped up that weren't necessarily directly related to the pandemic, but we had a number of things that happened at the same time, with starting with chip shortages, other kinds of component shortages. And one of the things that we transformed over the last several decades was the shift to just-in-time manufacturing.
Yes.
And a lot of consolidation of manufacturing in fewer places. And they realized over the last couple of years that system, when everything was working, it worked really well, was very efficient.
Yeah.
But it was also very brittle. And now the industry is trying to adjust to that and how to provide, how to gain more resilience.
Yeah.
And how has Bosch been developing that, trying to develop or building that resilience?
That's a key question because supply chains are complex if you set them up complex, and this can lead to, let's say, a virtual cost efficiency, which if anything happens, it's not anymore there. So obviously now you try to see things in a different way optimized, because you have to see that transaction costs going down, which was our paradigm, right? We thought that transaction costs of the planet go to zero. We can transport anything anywhere for zero. We can transact with no taxes and duties for zero, right? And we can project then productivity from any point of the world to any point of the world. That's kind of the ideal, which was there 25 years ago. So, and then everybody went for this global projection of the maximum scale in one location and then shipped to the entire world. Well, you would see that probably now a bit different, because we've seen if things go out of balance, that suddenly transportation costs skyrocket. Some of the leads you don't have anymore. Suddenly some duties come up which are not very nice, then suddenly you can't use certain relations anymore because they are just politically or geopolitically problematic, or just your location is at risk. We have COVID at the biggest location.
Natural disasters or
the biggest location, we just had to shut it down or something like this. We all experienced that, right? Mm-hmm. Where a single chip fab somewhere in Malaysia can lead to disaster globally. So that's where everybody's now working on dual or triple sourcing, smaller structures, more resilient network spaces, and so it's absolutely sensible to think of these dimensions, while at the same time we should not now take it for granted that globalization has helped us a lot. Because one thing in globalization is great, that you can project talent onto the business system, which normally you couldn't if you just hang around in one location. And I think this element will prevail. It will maybe even become bigger, because most of the large economies are now facing a structural change of demographics, which is coming the next 10 to 15 years. And that means we have to source talent globally. That's important. Product and physical stuff. There we have learned that a bit less scale and maybe a bit more locations may be better than just one big thing somewhere with maximum scale, because the risk is just too high.
And that's an interesting distinction between the talent versus the product and manufacturing.
Yeah.
Related to that, one of the things that we've seen between the relationship between OEMs and particularly tier ones and the rest of the supply base over the last several decades, there was a decided shift where OEMs gave more and more responsibility to tier ones to provide systems.
Yeah.
To do the systems integration and provide a system back to the OEM to do final assembly. And within that, as an example, the chips, the tier ones were responsible for selecting the chips that were going to be used.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing, as a result of the last couple of years, the OEMs pulling back some of that responsibility, them doing the sourcing of what silicon they want, and saying to tier one is like, Bosch, this is what we want you to use in this domain controller or the system. And I was talking to someone else actually earlier this morning, and it brought up an interesting point that has given OEMs much more visibility into the costs of what's coming in, and narrowed the scope for a tier one to have some profitability, have some margin built into the products you supply. How is Bosch dealing with that? Is that something you've seen, and how do you deal with that to protect your business?
Well, there's always two margin pockets around. There is the system approach, where you try to really build something remarkable because there's an advantage to provide a system. Otherwise, it wouldn't make any sense, right? There needs to be an advantage to providing a system. Then there is a margin for the system. And it does come only to the point that you select the chips you use. It comes to the point where we have specific designs for silicon, which we do for certain systems. And these are our designs. We design them with our IP on them, and we let them manufacture by some manufacturer. So if you get a system from us, you get this kind of chips because that's our designs. They're optimized for the system. That's what you go for. And new system for what you mean with silicon selected by OEMs very often is the SoC selected by the OEMs. These are other systems which are defined by this SoC, by the way. And what you get is actually a tier one like situation with the SoC provider, because he then says with that SoC, certain other silicon has to be selected to function with this SoC, and certain software packages have to be selected to function with this SoC. So what you get is not that you don't source the system anymore, you just source a different kind of system. Yeah, it's just not physical integrated, it's in a different way integrated with software and other design rules. But there's another business which is always of interest all the time, and it has always been for Bosch, which is components business. There's certain sub-components, sub-systems, sub-elements, which are of high interest for anybody. I don't talk about the screw, right? I talk about a whole bunch of small things, which are of highly interest and which are just employed as they are. And it could be a semiconductor, it could be a sensor, it could be a small box with some integration, it could be some small computer, and those businesses will prevail. So I think we'll see everything. You will see systems integration as it has been before. It will happen in some areas, that's right. And by the way, it makes perfect sense then for the OEM not to select the silicon within a braking system, because why should you do that? Why should you select the silicon within an ESP system? You buy an ESP system. Done. Yeah, and yes, there is risk associated to that because the manufacturing of those chips is linked to that design. Yes, that risk exists, but the risk so far never play out bad unless in the COVID times. Yeah, in the fallout. Then you will see new systems like the SoC-based ones. That's also for me, a tier one like relationship you build up there with the dependencies as they are before. You can't just flip and change, right? Where we just present here that we have multi-SoC capabilities. That's our approach to it. And say,
you have a partnership with NVIDIA and Ambarella and Qualcomm, and
very important. And you will see a lot of still very valuable components. For us, the whole playground is open. I think we'll even have businesses where only the integration will play a role, or only the software. And that's now new to this new world, because suddenly things come up which are pure IP, nothing delivered, just the IP. And that's for me fascinating, because in the end, actually, I think new opportunities arise for both the OEM, the supplier world, the chip world, as well as integrators. You will see it all, and that's good. Lots of competition. Good value.
Okay, so any final thoughts?
No, I think we shouldn't see things too pessimistic in this industry. The industry is a good way. All right, yeah, you're providing mobility for everyone. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you. All right, so we're here, the ribbon cutting of the safety testing and investigation lab, which is a new part of the facility here at HACI, the Hyundai America Technical Center Incorporated. So first off, a little background. Brian Latouf, you're the Global Chief Safety Officer for Hyundai Motor Group.
I am.
And so first, start off for listeners for the Wheel Bearings podcast. What is HACI?
Well, HACI is our Hyundai America Technical Center, and it's our regional technical center that looks at and develops technical solutions for the region for future products.
Okay, and this new expansion that you're opening up today, the still, what is that? What's this all about?
So the still is part of our North American Safety Office. So we call it NASO, which is a part of Hyundai Motor America. So Hyundai Motor America manages product sales, distribution, logistics, issues in the field. And what we do is, as a safety office under HMA, We lead investigations into people that have issues, right? Problems with their cars, failed parts, understanding, defects that have occurred. And, our goal is to have a data analytics system that can actively look at data as it's coming through to warn us of trends and emerging issues. And then from that, we'll do a deep investigation. And the investigation itself needs resources to understand what failed, right? So this lab enables that. So we'll have the ability to do full-blown teardowns of vehicles. We have a CT scanner that can study a part without taking it apart. Often if you try to disassemble a component, you destroy the evidence of the failure. Scanning electron microscope and a spectrometer that also assists with detailed studies. So for a failed PCB board, why did it fail? Is there contaminants on it and so forth? So we'll have the tools to truly understand that failure. And with that as well, we're excited about the VDA pad, the vehicle dynamics area, where we can test vehicles that are at higher speed with the track associated to it. And then the crash lab as well, where we can try to recreate a real world crash that's not regulated by a typical crash test, right? So we'll explore the boundaries of what happens to our customers, and we're after continuous improvement, making the product better, and the customer's at the center of that circle that I talk about, the circle of safety.
And I think that's what makes this facility a little bit unique among the industry. Everybody's got crash test facilities and safety facilities where they're doing development work, but this is also really focused on the vehicles that are already out in use by customers, right? And trying to learn from real world use.
Exactly. Yeah. That the sooner we can get at an issue, then the less safety risk it presents to people. If you, so for example, fatigue or corrosion failure, that takes time. If you wait and then react to it, it can grow, and that creates greater risk. So we want to quickly find issues, investigate it, understand the root cause, and in a defect-free culture, you do recurrence prevention. So what's the solution so this never happens again? How do we change our requirements, our validation on the engineering side, or supplier quality issues? We go after the supplier for improved quality.
And what's the process for finding the vehicles that you want to test and investigate? How are you going to get vehicles or components back here to test?
Well, that's the beauty of having it in region versus to do this in Korea, right? So we have the facility here. So it's much easier to ship a car from Florida to Michigan than it is to Korea, right? So we look at data. So that's our data analytics infrastructure. So we're uniting all the different data streams. Like you have an extensive warranty stream, field reports, dealer reports. You have BOQs, which are submitted to NHTSA, right? So you have all these different complaint databases. So our data analytics system uploads that into a data warehouse, and we have machine learning tools that vectorize the data, and we can look for trends. And we're mapping failed component parts, verbatims of what people say, to an actual safety hazard, loss of power steering or loss of brake control, those type of things. There's 15 hazards. And then we rate them from a severity standpoint. That gives us line of sight of the issue, and we get products around that represent that too.
Okay, so once you've identified something in this data system, then you can go and look for, to retrieve a particular vehicle or component to bring back here for investigation.
Yes, and the bad component is just as important as the good component, right? So you have a baseline. So you can
probably more so, because those are the ones you're going to learn from.
They're going to learn from, but you also want to compare. So you try to get the same population, and if it was a supplier quality trend, you may see evidence of that quality issue in other VINs or products produced around that same time frame.
So from a safety perspective, what do you think is the biggest safety issue that the industry is facing today? And kind of what do you think are going to be the big challenges that you're going to be facing over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, we're very much after the 43,000 fatalities that are likely to have died on the U.S. roadways. 42,715, I think, is the number. I can't remember exactly, but it's It's a huge number, and it. How do you improve on that? So it's not just failed vehicles, but it's the opportunity of how are these people getting into crashes, studying that behavior, testing it in our crash lab, and then also how do we improve our crash avoidance systems, right? And we'll be able to look at performance of our AEB systems, like with the camera, the radar, active braking, when an obstacle's in your path. How do you make a crashless car? There's a long way to go. There's a big number to go after, but that's one of our goals as a company.
And looking at those fatality statistics, especially over the last decade, the biggest area of growth has actually been pedestrian fatalities. Not so much the people inside, because modern vehicles do such a good job of protecting occupants that number has been relatively flat. But it's pedestrians that are the ones that are dying in ever larger numbers. And so I think what you're doing here with the VDA potentially has a lot of real benefit there.
Yeah, the pedestrian issue. Yeah, so you need to look at not just the vehicles but the system, right? So speeding is up as a habit. People are excessive speeding, right? Impaired driving is another one that negatively affects those numbers. And then nighttime pedestrian fatalities is very high. And so you heard David Arkey from IHS talk about headlamps, right? So he actually will reward on behalf of IHS a top safety pick if your headlamp, and they actually test at night with these headlamps to ensure you can spot a target at a certain distance or a turning radius. And if the headlamp can't do it, they'll give it a poor rating. So we engineers ours to meet its criterion requirements, and it's a massive improvement in your ability to see that pedestrian in the twilight or nighttime at a distance.
And of course, a couple of months ago, NHTSA put out a notice of proposed rulemaking for next generation AEB systems to try to make them even more robust. And right now, what we have is a voluntary system, but there's going to be a mandatory system. And how do you see AEB having to evolve over the coming years to potentially meet those new requirements?
That's a great question. I mean, I responded to that rulemaking. So I submitted a positive document supporting NHTSA's effort, applauding their choice to go after that. I think just because you have AEB on the car doesn't mean it can't get better, right? So how do we improve it? Higher speeds, more difficult pedestrian detection tests, and then they've added nighttime, right? So those factors alone are going to make it very difficult with existing systems on the car to meet that standard when it comes out. So we'll have to plan for it. So how do we enhance our current systems? What additional sensors or hardware do we need to put in? But it's all in the right direction, right? Of trying to eliminate those crashes, eliminate the fatalities. So I applaud NHTSA for taking that step, and we'll figure it out. Engineers love to, that's problem solving 101, right?
Yeah.
We'll figure it out.
And of course, in addition to the VDA and this building, there's also your battery investigation building. And as you get more and more EVs on the road, there's going to be more challenges around those. What sorts of capabilities are you going to have here for battery testing?
So we have a battery investigation lab, a BIL, and it's nearing completion, and we're very excited for it. It'll have high voltage charging. It'll have the ability to fully tear down a full-blown battery pack, which is a significant part of an electric vehicle car, right? So you'll need a special hoist, a special lift table to do that. We'll be able to disassemble the cells. If there's an issue with one of the cells, a short or high resistance, we'll be able to find that out. We'll be able to see, is it a manufacturing issue? Is it a supplier issue? So that type of resource is very special. So we're going to have that here, and we're going to pursue any type of failed system we'll bring here. We'll look at it. Not only do we want crash safety with electric vehicles, but we want charging safety, right? So when you charge your car in your garage or in your apartment, we want you to sleep well, right? You don't need to worry at a full state of charge something really bad is going to happen. We have a battery management system that'll monitor it. We'll cut off the charging. but we're going to constantly look for those improvements in quality. One of the advantage Hyundai has is our battery partners are Korean as well. So LG Energy Solutions is Korean based, and we also have SK On in Korean. I've personally been through their facilities in Seoul to walk their quality line, and the advancements are happening almost every week of improvements in how they manufacture. So the learnings are incredible, and we're going to help add to that with what we see and find in the field.
And then one last area that was highlighted as we walk through the building here is there's areas that are focused on connected vehicle and particularly cybersecurity. As we have vehicles that are more and more connected, you get cellular modems, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, etc., plus connections through a charging port. Cybersecurity is going to be an issue. So how big of a team are you going to have focused on cybersecurity?
So the Hot Sheet team does have an existing cyber team. I'm not sure exactly how big. I think it's like maybe 10 people. I think the goal for cyber for us will be more in-region testing and evaluation of systems. But the software aspect of it it requires a very specialized skill set that I think will exist in Namyang. But we'll have a team here that can help take vehicles in region and study the concerns and issues and report back. But I don't think we'll staff up to develop the future, robust cyber solutions.
Okay, that's probably more out of Korea, where they're developing the core operating systems and the overall development process, because obviously cybersecurity is something that's got to be designed in from step one of developing a vehicle now.
Yeah, and so imagine any type of change to harden the system for cyber threat, you're going to affect for potentially the functionality of something else, right? Because the software is all connected on a high-speed bus. So you have to have that ability to revalidate the whole system performance, and I think that will continue to be stationed in Korea.
It's kind of for it. Any final thoughts you want to share?
I'm excied. This has been a dream, so it's kind of a milestone in my career.
Yeah, you announced it last year in Chicago, I think. Now, 18, 17 months later, here it is.
Building it, yeah.
Almost ready to move in.
Yeah, we'll be moving in soon. So Thanks, Sam.
All right, thank you very much, Brian.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.